So I wanted to take today to talk about something that I've seen pop up just on Twitter, YouTube, just social media in general about the Dragon Ball community. And I'm just going to take a couple minutes here because I don't really feel like I have so much to say that it's going to take more than 10 minutes. But just in general, this idea that the Dragon Ball community is imploding on itself in terms of the people who covered Dragon Ball only covered it, and because it was popular, because there was something to talk about every single week, and because they were cynical enough to think that they had ideas or there was stuff to talk about for the foreseeable future, to the point where the entire basis of their channels or their social media presence was based entirely around Dragon Ball. And look, I think in general, the cynic in me would agree with that. I think it's way too easy to agree with that sentiment, considering what's happened to the Dragon Ball community as of late, over the last couple months, the last year and a half since Dragon Ball Super ended. And yeah, we had some reprieve with Dragon Ball Super Broly, and we had a little bit of reprieve with, as well as the manga's been doing recently with Moro, and then also Dragon Ball Super Heroes and all the games that have been coming out. Obviously, there's still plenty enough to talk about when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, or at least Dragon Ball in general. But the one thing I don't understand about this sentiment, about this idea that Dragon Ball fans were just in it for the money or the recognition, or just in general, they thought they could be their own community when there was a broader community of the anime community out there that they should have been mining. I've never understood that, because everybody that I've ever met, I don't care if it's their career or not, but pretty much everyone I've ever met who's involved in YouTube in any way isn't a media source. They're not an outlet for all things anime. They're not an outlet for all things movie related, anime related, music related, sports related, all this other stuff that you can go to every single day on the internet and get multiple different updates to what you want to talk about or what you want to listen to or something. And yeah, there's not a lot of stuff there that you want to read about or listen to, but there's enough there that keeps you coming back every single day just in case there's an update. No, YouTube is a personality-driven platform, right? People go on here primarily the same way with me, and most of the people that I've talked to, whether they turned it into a career or not, came on here to speak their truth, to talk about the things that they wanted to talk about and bring a voice to the genre or the story, or just in general, whatever it is that they wanted to speak to. They wanted to bring a voice to it that they didn't think was being heard or being talked about when they first got into the game. And looking at it in terms of Dragon Ball, yeah, it's saturated. Yeah, a lot of people do pretty much the exact same thing, but there's a lot of people that I know and talk to who did a new and original, interesting content that they didn't have to rely on anybody else for. And just because the series stopped and there wasn't stuff to talk about didn't mean that they gave up all of that entirely. They talked about other things, they covered other topics and stuff, and they've been trying to keep relevant, not just in Dragon Ball, but other genres and just other things in general, waiting for Dragon Ball Super to come back. And you're acting like that's a bad thing. We're individuals. Like I said, we're not a media conglomerate. We're not going to be talking about everything. We don't know everything. A lot of people like me grew up with anime, yes, but we don't know enough about enough anime to talk about it with enough authority as we do with Dragon Ball. So talking about Dragon Ball, especially when it was relevant, was easy. It was fun. It was something that we all wanted to do, and it wasn't entirely money related or anything else. It was just had something to say, wanted to say it, wanted to do videos on it at a consistent basis. And as soon as that kind of well dried up, even though Dragon Ball itself hasn't dried up, we have Dragon Ball Heroes, we have the manga with the Moro chapters, we have Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super games at this point, still coming out every single year. And then we also have the Dokkan battle thing with Legends, and just there's a lot of Dragon Ball content still out there. But in general, when you're looking at the fandom, the people who are covering Dragon Ball every single week and wanting to do these videos, these discussions about this current series going on, to me, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, most other communities have this exact same situation almost every single couple of months every year. Just Dragon Ball's been a little bit longer because it was a weekly anime that took, at this point, like a year and a half hiatus. But you see the same thing with Star Wars movies, with Saw movies, with Walking Dead content, even though AMC is threatening to do 48 weeks of Walking Dead content a year. I'm sure the people who cover that are going to be extra excited because it's going to have something to talk about. No real hiatuses for that series for the vast majority of the year, and it's going to feel a lot like Dragon Ball. But when Dragon Ball ended, a lot of people who covered it weren't huge fans otherwise of any other anime. And if they were, they just didn't have anything to say because there was nothing else going on at that point either. And you want to sit there and point fingers about you felt like you were your own community and you could survive entirely on Dragon Ball, but you needed to be looking at other things and other anime and all this other stuff when the vast majority of people who like Dragon Ball don't like other anime. Even if they do, they don't know enough about other anime to keep it going on their channel. And even if they did, it wouldn't have been as prosperous for them to do that, other than just updating you on new and interesting Dragon Ball related news based on Heroes or any of the games or the anime returning or anything else related to that coming out every couple of weeks. Than it would have just talking about a new and original thing. YouTube doesn't work like that unless you become a personality, and the vast majority of people who cover this type of content aren't personalities. In fact, most people who do cover a lot of content on anime, as we've seen as of late, have had their kind of recognition decrease. People realize that even though they're covering all this other stuff, they don't know a whole lot about it. They make a ton of mistakes and they're doing everything they can, and it becomes less exciting for people to watch that particular content. I mean, it's hard to keep up with this stuff, and criticizing people who do one specific cultural topic, whether it's Dragon Ball or Walking Dead or anything else like that, and looking at them as if they have no real resilience to keep what they're doing on this platform consistent and make it so that it's always relevant. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I feel like that's not even how YouTube looks at it. And even though we all know that Dragon Ball is coming back at some point, even though we all know that this entire community, all of this criticism about Dragon Ball and everyone trying to jumping ship now that Dragon Ball isn't on the air anymore, is kind of a load of malarkey. Because if it's going to come back, it's going to come back stronger and with a bigger community, at least on YouTube, than we've ever seen before, because even people who jump ship are going to be talking about it even though they haven't talked about it in years. I mean, we all know that's going to be the case. Looking at it in terms of the people who were covering it beforehand, or the people who only covered it were simply jumping on a bandwagon and now they don't have any other content to look at, I think is too critical. People are people. They like what they like. They're going to cover what they know, and criticizing them for not reaching out and doing all the research that would be necessary for them to cover any other series that's as long running as Dragon Ball, if not longer, or just as dense as Dragon Ball, as if those people are lazy and they should be doing this because they want to keep up some kind of social media presence, I think is a little nonsensical. And it's just being critical and negative just to be critical and negative. And we should really stop this as a community, because I feel like it brings all of us down to make these arguments instead of trying to come together and realize why people covered Dragon Ball to begin with, people talked about it, people were excited about it to begin with, versus what's going on now and what's going to happen in the future. So if you agree with this, I know this was a rambly video. I do know that. Tell me in the comment section below whether you think it was. But, guys, I felt like this had to be said. It's something that has really been bothering me over the last couple of weeks, and something that, literally over the last year and a half when Dragon Ball Super ended, and everyone thinking that these channels are going to go nowhere. And whether or not that's true or not, I feel like it's kind of a mean sentiment, considering the fact that, not everyone is supposed to have a categorical knowledge of everything related to anime or something, so that they can just pick up something else and that's going to be successful, especially on a platform like YouTube that really rewards success in terms of niche content and relevance and things that you're covering on a day-to-day basis based off the exact same content. So I can understand why so many people wanted to cover Dragon Ball. I can understand why so many people have kind of gotten off the ship of covering Dragon Ball, especially myself. And in the future, when it comes back, a lot of people are going to come back and it's going to be more competitive than ever, but it's going to be just as fun. And the fact that we're, and this notion that we're burying ourselves in terms of one specific cartoon series and not really branching out doesn't really impact me as a creator all that much, because I know there's a lot of stuff that I like in this world, but there's only so much that I have time to give to a series that I know enough about and willing to talk about with enough confidence to talk about something to make my opinion known and talk about it with enough relevance that makes it fun for me at least. So tell me in the comment section below, do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Do you feel like the people who cover Dragon Ball should be focusing on other manga or other anime or just other stories in general? Do you feel like focusing primarily on Dragon Ball is kind of detrimental to your creative output on YouTube? Or do you like the fact that your favorite content creators focus primarily on Dragon Ball and not another particular anime or series because you don't care about that stuff? So let me know about this in the comment section below. I really want to hear what your thoughts and opinions are. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.